My name is TJ Lagus. I am a sophomore writing major at SCAD. How mental health affects my college experience? It kind of affects my life in a new way.
You can take it either two ways, that you can make the mental health a bad thing about learning about it, or you can make it a good thing and get better from it. You can learn and adapt and move on. My name is Lily Ogle. I am a junior illustrator. My mental health is a tricky thing because I was kind of, raised not knowing that mental health was a thing. So when I got here, I got to college, it was a very confusing and scary time.
Throughout my entire life, especially throughout all of high school, I suffered from depression and anxiety pretty heavily. And so that is still consistent in my life, but college has just put me in a different headspace with having a job now and having more rigorous classes and pursuing my dreams and how all of those kind of things coexist. And so I would say that it has been really good in some ways and it's been really bad.
My name is Asli Shebe. I am an instructional designer / writer at SCAD. I graduated from the writing program at SCAD. That was in fall of 2017. So I was there from 2014 to 2017, 3 years in college. I would say coping with any mental health issues in college is really tough just to begin with. It's such a trying time in your life. There's so much change happening. So just adjusting to being in a new place is one thing, but to bring, mental health issues into that environment as well is very difficult.
My mental health can affect my college experience in many ways. I think one of the biggest things that we can see where mental health is affecting is on our personal relationships and how we are performing in school. So if I don't have a good mental health at the moment, that will reflect in my work or in my relationships. My name is Sebastian Alvarado. Grade sophomore, major architecture.
I'm Lena Wilhelm. I'm a freshman and I'm going here for the business of beauty and fragrance. When I was going through the deepest parts of my depression, I was actually in high school, so it was really rough for me. I did have panic attacks very frequently, so I would be seen hyperventilating and crying, and at that point I was just rock bottom. So basically I had no motivation whatsoever.
I am Adam Gass. I'm a freshman and I am an animation major.
So how does your mental health affect your college experience?
I would definitely say that it's a negative effect. It's definitely a lot harder to be social and, to be as outgoing as perhaps you'd like to be. And of course, there are lots of times when it wears on my schoolwork.
I think one of the largest things about going into college as opposed to the rest of my life with mental health was realizing that it's not a consistent thing. I think a lot of my life I've been lucky enough not to have been diagnosed or struggled with anything in particular, so I felt like mental health wasn't something I needed to really worry about or think about. And getting into college, I realized that even though I am rather healthy in that aspect, I realize I can still struggle with things and I still have these moments where it's really, really hard.
Bottling up all my emotions and all of the things that are going on in my life was extremely unhealthy for me.
You can hurt yourself in more ways than just mental by bottling up your feelings.
Substances and ephemeral pleasures are one of the things that can help for a moment, but then on the long run, they don't really fix your problems.
Taking out on myself, I was self-harming. I was thinking a lot of suicidal thoughts and just being very angry at the world, at myself, for feeling like I was this weak person who couldn't cope with all my emotions and things that happened in my life.
Alcohol, Cutting myself is one of them, and sugar is way more deadly than you'd think it would be, definitely.
I did used to self-harm. I would just feel these intense emotions and I couldn't handle it, so I had to do it in other ways and distract myself. But I realized that this was not right for me and I was hurting, maybe my family around me.
Ways that I cope, the most preeminent way that I would cope is realizing that I'm a person. Like, I don't know, I'm a person with multiple different sides, multiple different relationships. Like, yes, I'm a student, yes, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, but realizing that I don't have to be all of those things all the time is really, really helpful for me.
And as for how it treats my art, I think that I look at myself primarily as a storyteller before anything else, and I think that it can definitely give excellent ideas for stories, but it also makes it impossible to do art sometimes. Just completely, there's no chance that you'll get anything done if you sit down, because you need so much creativity and so much of your mind free in order to create art.
My mental health can be either a driving force or a pressuring force in my work, because it's kind of like a relationship that you get with your own work and what's going on in your mind.
Like I said, I had no motivation to even keep friendships or relationships going. So art was hard for me. I didn't get up and I didn't do it as much as I would have liked to.
I think it's really noticeable. I don't know if there's anything really tangible. I think I'm just more productive whenever I'm in a really good mental state. I explore more, I question myself more, and it's a lot more freeing. I think if I'm in a bad mental state, I kind of just shut down. So in that way, it makes me way less productive. I don't get anything done, and then it's just this rut that I dig deeper for myself.
My mental health is extremely woven into my art and my craft. I'm a writer, so I spend a lot of time in my own head, which is where mental health exists. So I found that my art is another way to kind of find an outlet for all that energy that's built up within me.
And I think it wasn't until, I want to say, my sophomore year where I hit a sort of breaking point where I was going through really bad depressive episodes that made me stay up all night. And then when I finally got to sleep, it was like I get an hour or two of sleep and then I go to class somehow. And I had one instance where I was supposed to show up to a class with an assignment, and I had to be on the professor's desk at 8 a.m. And I'd set my alarm, I'd finished the assignment, it was printed, it was in my bag, and it wasn't until I woke up at 8:11 that I realized I'm gonna get an F in this class because the assignment automatically gets downgraded if you're not, you don't have it there in a time. And I just panicked. I stressed out. I came to class. I was, really upset with myself. I cried in front of the professor when he pulled me aside and asked what happened. And I had no words to say what happened because I myself didn't realize I had hit such a low point.
We are in a culture of a lot of polarizing ideas, a lot of negativity, a lot of competition, a lot of comparison, and social media is kind of where all of that is highlighted. So it's tough, but then again, that is kind of like the core of how we communicate in this day and age.
I feel like social media is plagued with competition and comparison. It's basically like a weird mirror where you don't really see yourself, but at the end you see yourself and all your flaws.
Thankfully, I'm not big into social media, but I definitely see how it would hurt other people. Social media is a big lie. People just go on there and they see how happy people can be and how great their lives are, but it's not true. No one's gonna put anything sad on social media. So that could make people think that their lives aren't fun and that they're the only one going through struggles, but it's not true.
I'm not bad with social media. I don't see a lot of constant updates compared to what I think most people see. Especially, Instagram is big here, and I think that that's where everyone gets jealous of other people in the end, because Instagram definitely makes the world seem a lot more perfect than it is.
So social media is so negative. I mean, there's obviously really positive aspects of it, and there's, you can connect, and I keep up with friends, and that's a major way that I stay connected with people.
Social media is an interesting topic, and I do definitely think that needs to be talked about. I happened to get off on the wrong foot with the internet. My first website of social media that I went on to was Tumblr, and I had no idea the whole etiquette of the internet. I really didn't know anything. So that started me off on a bad foot, and then it just kept going downhill from there. And at one point it instilled in my mind that I had to compete with everyone, that I had to be the best.
It's finding the balance between that, I think, of using it in a constructive way, in a positive way, without letting myself get too sucked into it where it's damaging to myself, because it can definitely be a quick, slippery slope, for sure.
And also for people who feel lonely. They might think that they're surrounded by all these people on the phone, but when they look up, they're actually alone.
It could be a great way of connecting people, but at the same time, it can just distract you from what you really have to work on.
Our lives aren't never ending, and there's a limited amount of time to do things and to talk to people.
I found that when I went to college and I went through depressive episodes as well, that even escalated to I started smoking, and when I was drinking, it was binge drinking, and just finding ways to escape all those negative feelings or try and cope with them in ways that were never really productive.
Some of the competitive nature of SCAD and the competitive nature of my job field and all these other things has been hard on my mental health, and that's just part of becoming an adult as well. And so I think that those things come to light more so as I've entered into my college experience.
So for college, I think I've just thought about it more, and I think that's the biggest difference in how that's applied to my life. Yeah.
When I first got depression, it was my first time when I came to SCAD. It was as a result of the way I had been treated back home, and nobody really realized it until I got here, and then I realized it.
I didn't care about homework, I didn't do well on tests, but the only thing that was keeping me going was the thought of college.
A lot of weight goes off your shoulders, realizing that it's okay to not constantly be thinking about schoolwork. And yeah, I'm a student, but that's just one part of my life.
Sometimes that little sliver of hope happens to merge its way in there, and if you can grab onto that, that's how I use that to help me climb out of the pit.
I did learn a whole bunch of new coping mechanisms, and one thing that really helped me was the sixth senses. So being able to touch something really soft and thinking about all the details about the way that it feels, or maybe chewing a piece of gum, feeling how it is and interacting in your mouth, and that would just calm me down.
My main coping mechanism is my faith in Christianity, and within that, once again, just this idea of community, not isolating, because I had a tendency to do that a lot, and finding an outlet where I could release all that and lay my heart out to people who would receive it and who would help me grow was super helpful. And the idea of Christianity is a super positive foundation to build that upon. Another thing that has been instrumental in my health is just taking care of my physical body. I think the mental is very connected to the physical, and so if I'm eating healthy, if I'm getting enough sleep, if I'm allowing myself to rest, that is night and day. I
go for walks, I hang out with my friends, and we bake cookies or something, little outlets to keep yourself busy with, so you don't have time to think about the negative.
I think everyone should go to therapy. I think the world would be a much better place if we all went to therapy and talked to people about our problems. It's not the same as talking to your friends. It's not the same as talking to your partner or your family. It is this completely different person who's isolated from your life, coming from the outside, hearing all of what you have to say, and devoting their time to hear you. They're getting paid to listen to you, so obviously they'll listen.
I definitely reached a breaking point dealing with it on my own. I wasn't talking to anyone about it. I didn't really tell anyone. And I ended up having a really weird fit, and then I broke my phone accidentally, and that just made it worse. And the next day I resolved, because that night I had seen myself in the future killing myself. And I didn't like that at all, of course. So, you know, since I still had the mind space, the next day I went to Bradley Hall, and they got me in right away because I told them it was an emergency. So, you know, there are resources here for you if you need them immediately.
I am very religious, and I believe that God has a plan for me, and it's all set up, and I just have to listen to Him and keep going to achieve that goal that He has for me in the end. And I just believe that being here is giving me hope, and I'm really excited to finally do what I want to do in a career.
So I think whenever I give myself time to step back from maybe schoolwork or relationships and just focus on me, it opens up this whole other world of interests.
I think people think about mental health as it's always problematic. There's always something or something you want to hide. But I feel like if we start the conversation and we try to translate what's going on in our minds through language and through other people, that can open so many doors for everyone.
People think that you're weak or that you're injured and that you need to be helped every second of the way, or they just don't believe in it at all.
The problem with, you know, all mental health illnesses is that even though we judge them by the same names, they affect everyone differently, and there's no easy way out of it. There's no easy solution, and, you know, a lot of people still think that depression is just like, get over it, kid. And it can be a lot more than that, obviously.
It manifests in so many different ways, and I think there's a danger in putting one type of face and one type of name and title to it, and understanding that there is different manifestations for every single person is very important. And I think that's where we can really, the difference between helping and harming people going through a mental health issue is understanding that, you know, there's a spectrum of side effects and a spectrum of ways that these things manifest.
Some people that are close to me think that mental health is a choice, that you just choose to be depressed one day. You know, just think different, that'll fix everything. You know, just don't think like that. And if that's just how it worked, nobody would have issues with mental health, but that's not how it works.
I think, especially nowadays, when terms about mental health like depression and anxiety get tossed around on a very casual level, I think it can diminish people who really struggle with that.
I think an assumption people make about mental health is that it's only something to think about when maybe you're sad or upset or, you know, depressed or anxious. It's not anything like that. It's gradual, it's constantly changing, and it's always there.
And I think that a lot of people will see someone reaching out for help once as like, okay, they got help, they're over it now. But obviously, you know, depression grows in the back of your mind, and it's not always clear what's causing it. And I think that a lot of people not understanding that it's not just a one and done thing is important.
What we should do as a community, as humanity in general, is to just kind of like reopen this conversation of what it truly means to struggle with mental health.
I think mental health as a topic would just be more everyday and more nonchalant and better.